approve the agenda. It's a 5-point agenda.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Voice,
I'll second.
second by, I think that was Turk.
Yep.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? All right, we have an agenda. All right, item number 4, let's get right into our vendor presentation, which is BAYCOM. Mike Day, were you going to speak first, or we want to go right to the BAYCOM folks that are with us?
I'll just briefly say we've got our second meeting here with BAYCOM Communications and similar agenda. And I don't know, Scott or Rick, who's kind of running the show, but I'll hand it off to you guys, and we'll take away, and we'll do the presentation and then questions to follow.
Sounds good. Thank you, Mike. Scott Johnson. I'll be kicking things off. So, a lifeline in moments that matter. Thank you, everyone. That message means something, really means something to the BAYCOM employees. And I want to welcome everyone. My name is Scott Johnson. I'm the Vice President of Sales and Engineering for BAYCOM. I'm going to be kicking things off on the vendor presentation portion with assistance from Rob Dillon, the President of BAYCOM. After that, I'll be handing the standard question portion of the presentation over to Dave Steinhoff. He's the engineer that designed the Richland County system, and also is the one that we can utilize for answering the standard questions. Reliability. Reliability during moments that matter. The vendors that BAYCOM represents are the industry leaders for quality and reliability. And that can be seen by the number of public safety agencies that have chosen Motorola solutions. In Wisconsin, 51 of the 72 counties have selected a Motorola solution radio system. In addition, in North America, 36 statewide systems throughout the US are Motorola solutions. This speaks to the respect that Motorola has with public safety agencies within Wisconsin and the United States. But reliability of the product is just a start. What happens in the moments that matter? For example, how can you rely on Motorola and BAYCOM in an emergency? I want to take you back about 2 years during the civil unrest in Kenosha. During that time, outside agencies were coming in to assist the Sheriff's Department and the Police Department. BAYCOM contacted them and asked, how can we help? What additional ways or resources do you need? The Police and Sheriff's Department responded by saying, we need communication. In downtown, it would be nice to have dedicated communication sources, since we still have to support our communities outside Kenosha. BAYCOM responded along with Motorola's solution. We picked up 2 different repeater systems along with 100 APX radios that we shipped directly to a Motorola employee in Pleasant Prairie. The technicians worked to charge the batteries, program the radios, get the repeaters ready, and we deployed that system in downtown Kenosha. They were able to utilize this for the incoming agencies so they could communicate and do things as safely as possible. Reliability is just more than the equipment. It's the partnership that BAYCOM values and having with our first responders that we are proud to serve. Innovation. Innovation is, once again, an important portion of considering a radio system. No one spends more than Motorola Solutions on research and development for our public safety entities. $680 million a year they do, along with strategic partnerships or purchases that they have done over the last several years. One of those is a solution that Richland County currently uses, the CAD, or computer-aided dispatch, from Spielman. One of the key parts of this innovation is to have an ecosystem that offers multiple platforms that can work together and create efficiencies and safeties for not only the first responders, but the residents within a county. BAYCOM has always worked with Motorola Solutions, our subscribers cover a variety of areas, and that is the only product that we ever represent or sell to our customers. I'm currently sitting here today in our Innovation Center, our Lifeline Technology Center. And here our customers can come and they can test, see, and try out the products that we represent. One of those innovations I would like to talk with you today is called radio management. Radio management is an offering that we have with our bid response for Richland County. It's an efficient way to have inventory management of radios. It's a centralized location for code plugs, and also, most importantly, programming via secure internet connection. We have agencies like Dane County Sheriff, the Wisconsin DNR, and other counties, to name a few, that take advantage of this resource. What this can do is before a first responder starts their shift, they can go to a designated computer. They can connect and they're able to update that radio to the latest firmware. So Steve is going to play the first responder for us today. Imagine he was coming from an outside location or he wanted to update his radio. He's simply going to go to the computer that we have shown here and connect his APX radio.
SBTV phone bay, EA Low 1.
So with the audio, as you can see, it's in a different location or a different program. He simply connects his radio. That radio is programmed to the new software.
Main, Green Sheriff 1 Digital.
It's that easy. And the advantage also for mobile radios, if you're using a cellular connection, have a modem in a squad or a different first responder vehicle, we can take a USB cable and connect to the back of a mobile radio. And with that cellular connection, they can update automatically in the field. This is just one innovation that we've, like I said, included. And imagine how things could take advantage of that over the life of a radio system. As you can see from our display here, typically if you wanted to do flash upgrades to 1,000 radios, that was 105 hours that would take of a technician. That's 13 working days. With radio management, it takes 12 hours and only 1.5 working days. We do not have to roll a van into Richland County to make any changes to an APX radio. So significant savings, efficiencies, and imagine in the situation that I spoke of in Kenosha, to where we could have sent updates to the agencies that were going to assist. Consistency. That's one of the project approaches that BAYCOM has that we utilize in our Sun Prairie office. We have what we call a system acceptance lab. And that is an area that is dedicated space for us to fully stage a system. The system is pressure tested before the users and our customers ever have it in the field. The time-lapse video here is of Greene County and the still pictures of our Greene County coming in and be able to test their radios, have dispatchers come in and look at the console and fully staged and reduce any issues that occur in the field during deployment. We can do advanced troubleshooting. So Richland County, if they would choose a Motorola and BAYCOM for their radio system, would be able to come to the Sun Prairie office, verify everything, test, and ensure that when we're doing a system cutover, it works efficiently and has the consistency that we would expect. Hydra coverage. Other vendors have to rely on third-party software that is built generically to predict coverage. Motorola Solutions Hydra is a proprietary software using the most up-to-date terrain, ground, and road data available from private and government agencies to help, in combination with Motorola engineering, to go and visit every tower site possible. know what location the antenna would be placed, the type of antenna that we would need to use, and determine a reliable, predictable coverage. Motorola software is also consistently updated by Motorola Solutions. Having software like this has improved accuracy, and Motorola equipment provides a higher level of assistance in making sure that we are efficiently using the funding available for the agencies that we represent. Longevity. There's a lot on this slide, but what I really want to focus on is Motorola and BAYCOM became partners in 1956. During that time, Motorola was servicing the Green Bay Police Department radios. Since then, we've expanded into the Appleton area, Milwaukee Metro, Sun Prairie, La Crosse, and Maple Grove, Minnesota, where we've focused on and serving a large number of public safety agencies. The key with Motorola, and you'll see there's a lot of firsts in their history, but in 1991, Motorola developed the first narrow-banded digital public safety radio system. So they have a long history of creating radio systems for first responders. So partnering with BAYCOM and Motorola provides a safe choice when investing the amount of money that Richland County is considering. BAYCOM does not take that investment lightly and will work with the county and your consultant to provide the system that is on time and on budget. Aviat. This is the microwave backbone that links all of the tower sites together. As you can see, once again, Aviat is the preferred solution for statewide systems. 24 out of the 43 statewide networks are using Aviat microwave equipment. So a key system highlight is BAYCOM uses Motorola and Aviat, and Richland County would be able to rely on two industry leaders for communication. This provides a safe investment for taxpayers, knowing their key components are not only provided by companies that are headquartered in the United States, they're headquartered in the Midwest. The BAYCOM project approach is representing companies with decades of industry experience and understanding during moments that matter. We can provide several different types of products, but we choose to represent companies that truly understand mission-critical communication. Another perspective for Richland to consider is the interoperability benefits by the surrounding radio system, Motorola radio systems in other counties. Currently, Richland County and Motorola subscribers, this provides you with an advantage for sharing resources and maybe even tower sites when finalizing the overall design and working with BAYCOM. Using the same platform as neighboring counties could allow shared resources between dispatch centers to serve in an emergency backup or for mutual aid assistance. In addition, consider how radio management could be utilized with other county agencies or the State Patrol or the Wisconsin DNR who have Motorola subscribers. Now I'd like to turn it over to Rob Dillon, the president of BAYCOM, to discuss how BAYCOM's approach is and dedication to our customers.
Thanks, Scott. Everybody hear me? Can I just get a quick thumbs up? Make sure the sound's working. Thanks, Mike. All right. So yeah, as Scott mentioned, my name's Rob Dillon, and I'd like to just spend a few minutes. I'll be brief here, but would really like to just discuss with all of you on the call today how BAYCOM does business, and hopefully give you some better insight into, I guess, what it's like to work with our team on projects like this. So I'll start by saying our entire business is founded on a promise that we make to our customers. And that is, when you turn to BAYCOM for your mission critical radio system, it will work, period. Sounds simple, but when it comes to simulcast systems in the state of Wisconsin, for those that have been around this game for a while, it's not always a given. This is very complex technology, and you need a steady hand that has deployed the exact same system you're implementing here many times over. So for BAYCOM, we've come to know that when you're looking to deploy simulcast radio systems, our customers understand there's no better partner out there than BAYCOM. And I think there's three main reasons for that. First and foremost, we've done the research. And here's what we mean by that. When BAYCOM puts in a mission critical radio system for public safety, we have made a conscious decision to only represent what we feel are the best products in the market to support public safety. And, Motorola Solutions and Aviat are examples of that. We're a true blue Motorola partner, and our team of engineers, I can tell you, our team of engineers and technicians would have it no other way. So when you work with us, you know that we've vetted all of the available technologies already on your behalf, and we've selected the very best products that, most importantly here, will perform under pressure. So that's number one of three. Number two, we have the experience. In the past 15 years alone, BAYCOM has deployed over 20 Motorola simulcast systems in the state of Wisconsin. And as we talked about earlier, we believe that you deserve, and frankly, you should demand a steady hand that's deployed this technology before. The truth is that simulcast is really all we do. We're spread across a variety of different products, but at our core, this is what we do all day, every day. It is the focus and passion of our team. And then three of three, we are in this together with you. And I guess where I'd go with this is across the 20 systems that I just referenced, not once, and I think this is important, not once have we ever gone over budget on a simulcast system deployment. I just can't stress that enough because as I've come to learn, we do business a little bit differently than others out there. And just to cut through any confusion, I guess what I mean by that is once your final design is approved and we go through the detailed design process with you, you're locked in. And outside of an act of God that's completely beyond our control or some scope change that, you change the requirements for the system, outside of those factors, you shouldn't expect any change orders that exceed your budget plus contingency funds. And that's just how we do business. I think it's important to us that you understand that. We don't nickel and dime our customers. We certainly don't underprice our systems, only to come back with an open hand months later. It's just not who we are. So this is why I tell everyone that, yes, it's true. I think this is fair that BAYCOM systems and Motorola systems tend to be slightly more expensive on the front end than a lot of our competition. But over the full life of the system, we are hands down the most economical choice out there. So in short, what I wanted to leave you with is, in this regard, we design and price your system right the first time. End of story. I guess, as I kind of sum that up, I suppose I could have saved all of you a lot of time, with my hemming and hawing here and just cut to the chase. But as you can probably tell, we're really passionate about this, and not just the type of technology that we support, but equally importantly, how it is that we do business and what you can expect as a county when you partner with us. So whatever solution you select, and you've got some great options as I understand it here, I highly encourage you to do a few things. And this is unsolicited and clearly biased advice, and I acknowledge that. But I hope you find it useful all the same. So first, do not compromise. You only get one shot to make this right for your first responders. Listen to your consultant's advice and on who can truly deliver what you need. And then secondly, take a close look, and I'm sure you've done this, but we'd love it if you took an even deeper look under the hood here. Take a close look at our most recent simulcast system deployment and talk to Greene County. That's our last simulcast system that we worked on here. I think their experience will tell you a lot about what you can expect when you work with us. And then, compare this to whomever else you're considering for the project. Call their last simulcast system customer and see if the narrative matches what you find when you talk to Greene County, or frankly, any of the other customers that we've worked with over time. If you do this, I'm 100% certain that you'll find that BAYCOM always delivers on time and under budget, as Scott mentioned. So I encourage you to hold everyone to the same standard, and I know as a taxpayer, I certainly would. So in the end, it sounds perhaps pretty elementary here to say that our commitment to you is that your system will work. when you do business with us. When you're talking about public safety, however, we believe that commitment is the bedrock of our business, and we'll work every single day to ensure that your experience with us gives you the same peace of mind that the rest of our customer base has come to appreciate over time. So I really appreciate the opportunity to speak to you all today and your consideration for BAYCOM on this project. I hope we're given the opportunity to earn your trust for many, many years to come. Thanks.
Thank you, Rob. One of the things, we really tried to spell out today is that we're providing a quality radio system for Richland and a great opportunity with reliability, innovation, consistency, with the Hydra, the longevity, obviously the Aviat that we mentioned, neighboring communities that we have there, and the dedication that we have from our employees. One of the things, you can sit here and you have to listen to Rob and myself speak, and obviously we have a bias on which direction that we want to go. But after the RFP was submitted, we kind of had a discussion. How can we create a better impact to the opportunity that we have here today and hear from our customers? So we wanted to provide you with a customer voice, and hopefully the audio quality is good here and you can see this. This is once again our system acceptance lab where we have our county customers come in and we highlight those solutions. And if not, we can send the audio so it can be played locally. But here is the voice of some of our customers. I reached out to some that are longtime customers along with a short-time customer like we mentioned in green.
For the last 16 years, BAYCOM has been a partner with Richland County Sheriff's Office. We started our new infrastructure in 2010. It was a big thing for our county.
We had great service from the time that I took over as chief deputy in 2019 and continued.
They are always respectful of our needs. They're responsive at all times. A phone call, an email, and it's almost immediate.
The mobile system, the BAYCOM services that we get is just really a great system to have. It's very reliable. The biggest thing that I like about it is the relationships that we have. So if there is something that we off or maybe not working right, we can address it and get it looked at before it becomes a big problem.
I think it's very important that BAYCOM provides multiple services. It seems much easier for us. One call takes care of everything. They're kind of a one-stop shop.
It is easy to expand on those relationships that we have and not have to learn to trust and learn different companies.
We utilize the Panasonic Tough Books. We utilize BAYCOM in a lot of different ways in our agency for support.
I love that we have the simulcast system, so we have the coverage that not a lot of places have, and it's just very reliable and I trust it.
The services have vastly improved the radio system for the county for fire, EMS, law enforcement. Yeah, it's been a big upgrade for us.
My confidence in the BAYCOM team is exceptional. I completely trust the BAYCOM team. We have gotten to know the technicians. I can safely say our dispatchers really appreciate the technicians that we have because they explain what is happening.
I've been in law enforcement for 40 years, and that's all we ever had was Motorola radios. That is the premier radio.
I deal with a lot of different companies, vendors, and different things in my role, and the customer service from BAYCOM stands out amongst all of them.
I would recommend COM for anything that is being done because of the relationships, because of the technical support, because of the reliability.
We never once have we decided to look at a different vendor because anytime we call, BAYCOM is there. They come out in the middle of the night. Their techs are always available, and they make sure that they take care of their customer.
Well, hopefully the audio came across okay. And like I said, we can definitely share the YouTube link to be able to hear that. And it was very humbling to bring in the different agencies and be able to hear what they had to say about how, the communication system has benefited them. So in my 16 years I've been with BAYCOM, it's probably been, one of my highlights of my career working with this, that's for sure. So what I'd like to do now is turn over the next portion of the presentation, the standard questions, to Dave Steinhoff. Like I mentioned, he was the one that assisted in submitting our RFP and did the engineering of the radio system. So turn it over to you, Dave.
Thanks, Scott. And if I can get a thumbs up as well that you guys can hear me, just so we're clear on that. Good, thank you. All right, go ahead, Scott, into the first question that we have here. So I'm just going to read the question and I'll respond to it in that form factor. So in Richland County, supporting emergency responder systems, what is your current relationship and history? So BAYCOM history dates back to around 2014. From 2014 to 2017, we supported repeater installations to help aid in coverage gaps. A couple of the sites that wrote out here, Lone Rock and Bunker Hill, for example. And throughout that time period, that 3-year time period, there were recommendations made for a simulcast system. We knew, and as well as Chad Knable, who we were working with at the time, knew kind of the coverage demands, and the system that was in place was not meeting the criteria for the public safety. So we talked through some of that simulcast options at that point in time. In 2016, we made a connection between Richland County and La Crosse County for sale of a used Motorola Centricom console. That console was to replace an aging, unsupported Orbicom console, and that picture of the Orbicom console is on the right there. So Richland County purchased from La Crosse County that console, and that is the one that's in operations today. And from 2017 to present, then we signed a service agreement with Richland County to support the Motorola repeaters, the Motorola control stations, as well as then the dispatch console. And one of the service calls that I can remember, because I was the one that actually took the service call and went out in the field a few years back, it was with the Eagle Tower. So Chad Knable had reported to us that they were having coverage issues from that particular site and around that area. So we had gone in to check it over. It was the first time being at that site. It was maintained previous to that 2017 contract that we put in by another vendor. And so we went in and checked it over fully, and we had found a few things wrong with it. And by the time we got through that site, we were able to get back a good coverage system, and it was a significant increase that we were able to find with the things that were wrong and to repair those things. So that was an example of a service and the type of service that we've provided over the years for Richland County. Next slide. All right, so the next question was, please describe the most challenging coverage design project you have supported and why. So the most challenging coverage design project came from an existing analog simulcast system, which had existing tower sites and system antennas. In that system, it's like I said, it was an analog, and we were going to convert a single channel within that system to P25 simulcast. And P25 simulcast compared to analog simulcast has coverage design is less forgiving, and especially in the overlap regions of the towers. So on the right hand side, you'll see the graphic of that particular county. It's Fond du Lac County, and their tower spacing, and again, just unique from a P25 coverage design. And next slide's up. Because the tower sites were set, and we needed to review the following things then to try to make this system optimized for P25. So antenna heights needed to be looked at, directional versus omni antennas, and then transmit power at each of the sites. So a significant amount of engineering hours was put in using that Hydra software to create and optimize that network design in order to ensure that that P25 simulcast channel had similar coverage to analog simulcast, and again was optimized so that those overlap regions don't cause holes in coverage, but instead add and cover blanketed in the county of Fond du Lac. So the testing was done post-installation to ensure the design engineering and field deployment matched expectations, and the customer feedback was good from Fond du Lac County. Bobby, the emergency management director down there in Fond du Lac County, was one of the people that was in that video. So again, if you don't see that video from what Scott showed, you'll be able to watch it afterwards too and see her in that. Next slide, Scott. This question is, please describe any previous project or client support your company was involved with that required unique ideas to support challenges such as aging or failing equipment. So the first one I'll highlight is Monroe County. Going back 10, 15 years, due to budgetary shortages in that county, any system upgrades needed to be creative. They had limited funding. And we worked with the county to find key sites each year to expand paging coverage by adding individual repeaters as kind of band-aid steps. So their original system, before they upgraded to a simulcast, which is what they have today, their original system was 1 or 2 sites and then sporadic sites for the paging. The support of the aging Quantars, transmitters and MTR 2000s, and also the Centricom Gold Elite Council was accomplished by keeping spares that BAYCOM supplied so that the 24/7 service agreement that was in place could be supported at its highest level. So we went out when Windows XP was being used for the computer for the dispatch council, we went out and purchased some extra Windows XP machines. And that was during the time when Windows XP was shifting to Windows 7, and it was a hard time finding the physical hardware to run Windows XP. So we purchased a bunch of XP machines for that. When Windows 7 was getting transitioned out, the same kind of transition took place, in which we bought some machines to make sure that we could support their system as we said we were going to. And then in 2012, the system had saw some significant losses in coverage because of narrowbanding, which I know you guys have experienced as well. So next slide, Scott. In 2015, they went out to RFP, and we were awarded the system, and it was a 10-site analog simulcast system. And on the right-hand side, you can see the site design. Again, to unique challenges or ideas to support this system, because they were coming from a system that was hard to communicate in most areas, we were able to bring online a smaller 4-site system much earlier in the project in order to get them better communication. So a 4-site system was brought online 5 months ahead of everything else in order to improve their coverage far greater than what it was with those 1 or 2 sites that were active previously, and allowing them to communicate much better than during that interim time period that we were working with them. Next slide. All right, so another one with the aging equipment, Crawford County, nearby you guys there. System used, again, Motorola Quantars, MTR 2000s. Manufacturer support for those products was limited or non-existent. So BAYCOM used our own backup spares again to help support during a transition time period to allow equipment to be upgraded over time. So we worked with Crawford County and their 3-channel system to upgrade a single channel first, and then use the equipment that we removed from those channels in order to allow us to maintain the rest of the system as we strategically plan the upgrade of the rest of the channels. And this process was repeated year over year as the county could acquire the funding necessary to upgrade each of the channels to the simulcast system. Next slide. BAYCOM has a rich history in working with each customer and finding solutions to the challenging opportunities. This has allowed our customers to focus on what they do best, protecting and serving. So we do that through strategic planning, clear understanding, budgetary expectations, and desire to solve the challenges. There's an art to it. There's a creativity as we work with each county and what their individual needs are to make sure that they find the solution and get to the end solution that they're looking for. So as the graphic shows, BAYCOM has engineered, installed, or maintained 20 plus countywide simulcast radio systems in the past 10 years. We believe this is something that no other vendor in the area can stand up to as far as the quantity and that experience that we have with supporting all these systems we bring to the table when we start supporting Richland County as well. Next slide. All right, so what concerns you the most about providing a robust public safety radio system in Richland County? Richland County is a beautiful area in the driftless region, rolling hills and river valleys. And the beauty, though, is what makes it tough for radio systems. So the most concerning aspect of a radio system was ensuring that solid coverage for first responders throughout the county. And without coverage, and without the officer being able to hit his PTT and be heard by dispatch, it's a difficult situation. So on the right is a terrain map that you were seeing of a visual of all the terrain that you're dealing with in your guys' area. And you know this, but it gives a high visual of the river valleys and et cetera that exist in your guys' area. All right, so because of the hilly terrain, a single tower in the system tends to cover a smaller area in comparison to flatter terrain. This in turn requires more towers in the system to meet coverage demands. Viola was one of the most challenging areas for the county. It sits in a valley and almost in a bowl, and it also sits on the border of the county. So getting coverage into areas like this require a tower that is in a crucial location. This kind of tower typically only covers a very narrow area of territory as well, which equates to a higher cost for lower coverage area. Plus the tower requires a connection back to the rest of the towers in the system, so a microwave path, and Scott mentioned the Aviat microwave. This does not make it impossible, but it is a challenging situation. Even with the challenging terrain in Richland County, our design overcomes this obstacle and will provide first responders with the mission critical communications and upgrades so they desperately need and deserve in your guys' county. Next slide. That was all the questions that we had from this segment. Scott, I don't know if you're opening the door at this point. I'll hand it back to you, though, to take over.
Thank you, Dave. I appreciate that. Yeah, we're at the section with open questions, so please let me know, and I'll determine which one of the BAYCOM representatives can best answer that question.
This is Melissa Luck, and one of the county board supervisors and chair of the Public Safety Committee. I just wanted to also get your thoughts on Cazenovia is another populated center that has struggled greatly with communication. Have you looked at all at how we can make sure that that is also an improved situation with this project?
Dave, I'll turn that one over to you.
Thanks, Scott. Yeah, so, and I don't know if you guys have the maps in front of you that we presented on the last round of questions, which kind of zoomed into that area of Cazenovia. That particular area, outdoor coverage, for the most part, was getting covered into the area. I know there were some struggles as you stretch beyond the border of Cazenovia and what that looks like. So there were some definite challenges as we used the particular tower, the Bunker Hill Tower, to extend coverage into that area. But that one, it did show better coverage into that area, especially under the P25 channel design versus the old analog design.
Is that something, Dave, would you like me to stop sharing and something that you would like to share if you have some of the maps available, or?
I can if that's handy, guys. I'll let you let me know if that's something you want to see visually as we're talking through some of these questions.
Well, let me just follow that up with, in order to get coverage in those two small town municipalities, are you essentially saying it would take that 13 site option that you have in your proposal? Or how many tower sites do you think it would take to make sure we get coverage in those areas?
So it depends on how drilled down we go into Casanova and start looking at that part in particular. So if we looked at the maps and said, okay, look, 90% of it is showing that we should be predictively covering Casanova, do we want that to be greater than that with this design? And then reviewing, what does that actually mean? Does that mean something more has to happen, something more as far as a site, or something more in the design of the antenna system to be more targeted towards that particular area? For Viola, that's where it gets a little bit trickier, as we talked about in the questions. You know, Viola sits in that bowl, and there's the tower, the lease tower that does exist there that was included in our original 13 site design. We reviewed it internally, but we found we couldn't get that microwave connection back into the system. So we ended up using a tower that was in Lafarge instead to kind of get coverage back down into Viola. So again, we can review, does that mean, is there a different site that we did not see or that could be designed in a better location, in that crucial location, but still has microwave connections back to the system? Or are there other options we need to look at too, as far as using a different connection backhaul into the system for that specific site area because of the challenging terrain? So fiber comes to mind as an option that could be examined, that then we don't need the microwave line of sight to acquire it.
Okay,
That-
thank you. Mike Day, did you have questions before I open it up to the other supervisors and the subscribers?
Well, I wanted to kind of maybe just add to your question, Melissa. Dave, I don't know if did you guys consider any greenfield sites in those two locations because of the challenging coverage in those areas, or other lease sites that maybe you moved away from in your design? Can you speak to any thoughts you had while you were looking at those areas?
Yeah, so speaking to the site choices, you know, the first priority we went in with was, what was the coverage design specs of the RFP? So we tried to target in that arena. So it's that 95-95 coverage throughout the county, plus that 1 mile border was the critical element of the spec. Second to that, there was the listings of these villages that were in there. And so how do we best coverage but form a good combination between the two of wide area coverage, ensuring we cover within that 1 mile border, and get into most of these villages as best we can too. So one site, like I said, we looked at the one that's right in Viola, and the challenge again with that one was the height of that tower was 300 feet, I believe, and it couldn't make the path back to the state of Wisconsin tower that was east of it in order to tie it back into the system. So that's when we evaluated the Lafarge site. We put directional antennas on that Lafarge site, so the antennas are pointing south back into Richland County. Not ideal. We did not look in that particular area for a greenfield site. Again, with the premise that under the RFP specs of the 95-95 countywide 1 mile border, putting a greenfield site in there benefits Viola, but the overall territory a site like that covers becomes very limited because of the terrain and et cetera. So when we evaluated that, we tried to find the right combination between greenfield sites, lease sites, and getting coverage to meet the spec. Does that make sense, Mike? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, yes, that certainly expands on that topic. Just along that lines too, then, how about just you mentioned fiber. Can you expand on have you designed systems, or has BAYCOM implemented systems where counties have relied on either fiber connectivity or lease line connectivity? How comfortable are you with those types of solutions, if you would need one of those solutions in some of these areas?
Yeah, so we always put together like a list of priorities that we like to see for backhaul, and backhaul meaning the stuff that's going to connect the sites together. So our criteria is typically, number one, be independent of public infrastructure where possible. So that way you're maintaining control of it and the serviceability of it. So typically that lands in microwave being the number one solution then under our premise of how we try to build these systems. Number two then tends to be that leased circuit type system where, hey, either you're leasing dark fiber and you're lighting that up with your equipment on end to end, or you're leasing the actual fiber and the network point A to point B, and you have some sort of service level agreement that specifies, okay, we need to make sure we get this much bandwidth, this quality of service through it. And on top of that, the service uptime and ensuring that any fiber or lease circuits are going to be serviced on a 24/7 basis, making sure that that site stays active for you guys and your operations. So that's kind of the premise of how we choose. So looking at fiber, yes, we have deployed systems that ride on fiber only. They've typically been on smaller geographical areas where they've been more in a city or a village, but interconnected all the sites, and those cities and villages would have some sort of looped microwave system, not microwave, looped fiber systems that we have rided on then our system as the backhaul of choice, and successfully, again, as long as we're meeting the criteria of that SLA, the service level agreement, to ensure that we have something to stand on in case it's flaking out, in case there's something wrong with that particular path.
And one last question, Melissa, that I had. Dave, could you speak to, I think the county has a pretty good understanding of the need for a tower in the southeast part of the county, lack of real resources down there in that area. You folks also designed a greenfield site in the southwest area of the county. What did you see there that kind of led you to that recommendation?
Yeah, so in the southwest, the towers that we found that were already built, they tended to be not at the high points and towards the valleys, or they started getting closer and closer to other towers. So I think there was a tower that was more on the even farther southwest and towards down in the river valley area of the south. And so the coverage footprint to expand it into the hills and valleys became very limited at that point. Again, going back to that idea of all this terrain that you guys have, if we don't get that tower in that crucial high spot, the coverage footprint of each tower becomes very limited. So we chose that particular one to give that more blanketed and cover back down into the South River Valley as well. So there are towers there, and there might be a give and take in that environment, but in this particular case, when we were trying to meet the design specs and et cetera, that was what we found to be the best one for our design. And that was true of the one in the southeast as well. We did find that they were building a brand new tower, and I don't think it was going to be lit, so I'm going to guess it was under 200 feet, but it was right in Lone Rock, and I'm sure it's probably built by now. But it was a monopole down there, And we had looked at that one even to see if that would help, but it just didn't provide the coverage going north of there because it was back into the river valley again. So it didn't expand far enough north to do anything.
Thank you.
Welcome.
All right, so any of the supervisors, do you have any specific questions?
Yeah, this is Bob. Can you talk a little bit about your dispatch council as part of this? Some of the features that it has, whether it's door control, intercom. Talk about that. I guess I haven't heard anything about that.
Okay. The dispatch council is the MCC 7500E, and it has the same GUI interface, the display as what the Centricom has and what's in dispatch today. So there's a little bit of ease in transition when that takes place. As far as its capabilities of audio or contact closures, I'll go to audio first. The system provides wireline audio or 600 ohm audio connections. So it was designed per, again, the RFP. It can be added to have more circuits implemented if there were a need for it. But the idea is that it's a 600 ohm connection that ties the audio circuit into the dispatch console. So if an external audio connection kind of meets that criteria, then it can be pulled into the console. If it was something other than 600 ohm or some sort of mismatch there, we'd have to adapt the audio to make sure it got fed into the system properly. On the auxiliary IOs, I'll call it, the inputs and output capability of closing relays or those sorts of things, there is a certain amount of outputs that we have the capability of connecting to. They are dry contact closures. They're usually designed for you know, the low voltage type connections, or tying into a different system that maybe our relay runs a bigger power relay and maybe it's running doors or an access control system or things of that nature, that then you can control those doors from the dispatch console. That answer it, Bob?
Yeah, I did. Thank you.
All right, Supervisor Voice, do you have any questions?
Not at this time.
All right, how about Supervisor Turk?
No, nothing for me.
All right, so are there any of the subscribers or our administrator or MRIS, anyone have questions?
Madam Chair, this is Administrator Langrick. I have no questions. Thank you.
Okay.
Who's in the room with us?
I'm sorry, Barb, what did you say?
Darren that's in the room with us has a question.
Okay, can you have him get to a mic?
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, maybe speak up a little.
I'll do my best. How's that better?
That's good, yep.
So I guess one question I have, maybe to lead to others, but one question I have is, you're referring to the Ash Ridge site, I believe, when we're talking about Viola. And then is the other tower that you're referring to, is that up on the ridge, what they call Liberty? Are those the two sites that you're referring to? As far as one, the Viola site not being able to microwave back to Ash Ridge?
So the Viola site that we could not make that microwave connection was in the southern part of Viola. I think it was an M3 Hilbert site. I don't know if it had a name that matches what you're describing. We can provide the coordinates of the site that we are looking into, if that helps. Does that answer the site that we were targeting as far as that site in Viola?
It's the newer tower. It's one of the newer towers that's been put up recently.
I believe so. Yeah, it was a 300-foot cell tower. It had one cell provider, you know, up on top. That section of antennas that was up on top of the tower.
So, and then the other site that you're talking about getting linked back to, is that the Ash Ridge site that the DNR and and WISCOM uses?
Yes.
Correct.
So if that site, for whatever reason, isn't available, how does that change your coverage maps? And what does that do for this project?
So it's hard to predict. I will say that there was another tower that was right near the state of Wisconsin tower, that Ashbridge that you're referencing. I think it was within a few miles. That could be looked at then as a replacement if the state of Wisconsin tower for some reason could not be utilized. But obviously there's a lot of chain of things that happen if one site cannot be utilized, and what does that do, to your point, to the coverage, to the microwave system design, to all those things. But there were other towers, and again, specifically, I know there was one within a short distance of the state of Wisconsin that could be examined then if that state of Wisconsin tower became one that could not be used.
Okay, so the one that you're probably referring to is in a small unincorporated village called West Lima. It was recently put up, I think, in the last 12 to 18 months, give or take.
Yeah, I don't have the dates, but I know you guys had an explosion of towers in your area in the last few years. So
the reason why I bring that up is, again, I know a lot of this is just preliminary, you know, no sites have been selected. And there's a lot of work to do to make that happen, but the coverage maps that have been shared with end users have pointed to that Ashridge site as being one of the tower sites. So if that's taken out, you know, I can't say 100% for sure that that's no longer available, but folks that I've talked to at the DNR and other officials have said there's no more room on there, and they're not allowing anybody on that Ashford site. If you go farther up into West Lima, I don't know what that does for your microwave links either. I just want to be sure that, again, I know that this is all preliminary, but if we're selling to fire chiefs and EMS chiefs and they see Ashbridge on there and they see another tower site on there, then those don't get used, and our coverage isn't maybe what we would like it to be. I don't want anybody to be pinned down saying, hey, you sold us something that wasn't true because you used the information for your studies from a tower site that we probably might not be able to use, if that makes sense.
it does, and there's always that part of a project. I'm sure Mike Day can speak to that in the consultant piece of this too, where the next step is you sit down with a vendor right through the detailed design review, and you start looking more intently at the sites that are involved. And if there's information that can be brought to the table, such as, hey, our preliminary information that we've gotten from that state of Wisconsin, that Ashbridge site, is that we're probably not going to get use of it, then we can start examining what other options and ensuring that any changes that do have to be made from this preliminary design are made known. So new coverage maps get produced if we have to choose a different tower. Those coverage maps get reviewed, and we make sure that they meet then whatever design criteria that we still need to meet in the end as we're manipulating things and getting more finite detail on each of the sites and et cetera, so that you can take that information back to the people who are going to use the system and go, okay, guys, we couldn't use this site, but here's what's going to change, and here's what we're predicting now, and set those proper expectations and try to ensure the best coverage outcome that we can for you.
Okay, thank you. The other question I had, again, maybe not question, but you had mentioned the Village of Casanova, that with the new system that to be installed, we should see greater coverage. Is that correct? Versus the analog that's up there on it right now?
There should be a coverage improvement that's analog to digital in general. I would have to look at, we didn't do coverage maps of your existing system, so I can't say what the existing system is doing today. in comparison to what it will. But if the same antenna in our design system were used in analog comparatively to digital, digital does have a slight advantage to the coverage in any area.
Okay. But paging is going to remain analog, correct?
Paging will remain analog, and the advantage to paging, of course, is that it's an outbound only type system. So you're getting the advantage of the tower going out, as well as then the higher power transmitter from the site. So you get that 100 watts of energy or whatever that energy is at a much higher power than a portable radio that needs to talk into the system.
Right. So one of the issues that we're having currently, and you might be aware of this, is getting pages to the firefighters, EMTs, and Casanova, in and around Casanova. So what will change with this system to improve that if we're still using analog paging now and with the new system? Will there be something that we can do to address that? Because right now they're struggling to get pages off a bunker with the system that we have, which is analog. Maybe there's something that you're going to be doing at that site that will correct that. I don't know.
Yeah, again, I'll go back. I don't have the comparison maps to say, okay, here's what we would have predicted as it is today versus here's what we're predicting it's going to be using the information that we're planning on using, you know, the antenna height, the type of antenna used, the power that we're predicting that's going to be used as well, and being able to put that all down and then give a clearer picture of that. So without that, I'd have a hard time answering, well, is it going to be different? If the data set, if what we're doing is a different height, different antenna type, et cetera, then yeah, it's going to change the coverage footprint in some way. And what does that do then to what you experience in Casanova for your page coverage?
Would it be possible to provide that information to us before we make our decision?
Well, let me jump in here real quick and expand on that conversation from kind of probably an understanding that Dave doesn't have. First of all, today you're paging out of a single site, and you're paging out of the local Richland Center site. So you're not simulcast paging. So any of these new solutions is a simulcast paging addition. So you're not only going to get a more local site to your Casanova area, but you're going to get the advantages of multiple sites sending out signal at the same time. And that's similar in, as Dave was discussing, just the voice communications as well. Today, if you were to talk from the Casanova area, you're trying to hit that, do I have it right? Bunker Hill, Sullivan site, or Bunker Hill? Can't remember. I think it's Bunker Hill site. So you're trying to hit that Bunker Hill site repeater, and yeah, as Dave described, all things equal, P25 would work better, but also too, even an analog system, a simulcast system in Casanova is going to see multiple sites, and the conversation outbound and inbound is going to come from multiple locations. So you're going to get a little bit of a bump in that aspect as well with simulcast.
Okay, thank you. That makes more sense. I guess that probably was in the documents, and I just.
No. That's an in-depth, good question too.
So, okay, that does make sense, because right now it's being paged solely off of Bunker. I think there's a link between dispatch, goes to the Bunker Hill site, which is just up on County I, and then down into Casanova. But if there's other sites, then I would imagine that would help. Yes. Okay, thank you.
Did you have any other questions, Darren?
Darren, I think, was done. I had one, and it's just pretty much curiosity. Why did you eliminate the Eagle Tower site?
Yeah, good question. So when we evaluate sites and again, it's always against the design spec as our targeted goal. So getting that 95 coverage within the county and the 1 mile border was the spec, plus the targeted Richland Center 15 dB loss that needed to be in the spec as well. So we start reviewing what each of the sites cover, their overall footprint that they have, and we start manipulating the design to see, okay, what happens if I turn this site off and I turn this site on? Or if I use this site in place of this site? What happens if on a tower that we're building, for instance, a greenfield tower, what height do I need to accomplish the best coverage that's still, licensable by the FCC and gets us the microwave connection? So we threw all of those in combination and chose then what we felt was the best design for what we were trying to achieve. And so that particular site, and if I'm getting it right, that's the one in the south central of the county, correct? Yeah. So its coverage is down in the river valley dominantly, and it doesn't protrude far north. So it does great to cover that whole southern boundary, but it doesn't do much to get farther north. And that's where the greenfield sites start kicking in, is because they're starting to get down to peaks of the hills, and so you start overseeing some of the hills and valleys, and can extend the coverage of a particular site much farther. And that's all the conversation that kind of goes on when we look at designing and what sites and how which sites get chosen and which ones don't. And we also talked about in our overall system design in our RFP response, we try to look at things like, okay, leased versus not, versus, ones you guys own, because there's the cost involved of each of those. Is the actual height that we look at using on a tower, is it truly available, or is it not available when we actually have to have a lower height on a particular tower because there's already things on the tower? Using less physical space, vertical space on a tower compared to greater, if the design can allow it, so that the lease rates are more favorable if we do have to lease. So using 10 feet of vertical space versus 20 feet of vertical space has big impacts then on the reoccurring costs that happen on a lease site, for instance. So all those things are what we're incorporating. Hope that answers specifically to that south tower as to why we kind of got to the point that we did.
Thank you.
All right, are there any other questions from subscribers?
Darren has one.
Just one final question. I probably know the answer to this, but I guess I'd like to just hear it, confirm it. Your system that you're proposing is Motorola, so it's all proprietary to Motorola. Will there be any issues with radios made by other vendors connecting? I'm assuming there's not, but I'd just like to hear it from you guys.
I can answer that, and maybe you'd prefer to hear from an engineer. Dave always tends to be a little more popular during this open discussion. But no, that's one of the advantages of a P25 system. That's why the standard came in after what happened in 9/11, because no one could communicate during that event. So they created a standard that that they follow. That way any subscriber could operate on a P25 system. And so yes, you can have all different types of multiple subscribers to be able to communicate on a Motorola system.
Thank you. I just know there's going to be folks, you probably run into them. They're very fervent supporters of X radio group versus another, so I just wanted to put that out there. So thank you. That's all I have.
You bet.
All right. So are there any other questions before we wrap this up? Nope. Well, thank you for your time today. We appreciate you coming and presenting to us to help us make our decision as we move forward. So I think at this point we are ready to adjourn unless there's, and Mike Day, did you need to make any other summarizing comments? Are we good?
Nope, good on my end.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for your time. We appreciate, sorry, I have dog in the background. We appreciate your time. And I think we will go ahead and adjourn the meeting.
Thank you.
So I
Appreciate
would
your time.
entertain a motion to, oh, thank you. Yeah.
This is Bob. I'll make that motion.
All right. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right. I'll say motion by Frank, second by Turk. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you.
All right. We are adjourned. Thank you everyone for your time and we will be in touch.